All righty. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to, I think, your first session of the day. Today's session is called Lumio's Blank Space, Filling the Gaps for All Learners. Lumio's version, very Taylor Swift-esque themed presentation ahead of you. Today's first activity or session, you might have signed up for Light Up Learning with Lumio. However, it's going to be the same session, very similar. I just wanted to rebrand it to be more Taylor Swift themed here. But first things first is I'm going to have you join my session so you can actually interact with all of the slides. So I'm going to go up to my classroom management tab. This is me delivering a lesson in Lumio. And I'm going to pop out these join directions here. And I'm just going to drop this link again in the chat for those that have not had a chance to join the session. When you click on that link, you're just going to say, join as a guest. So we're going to hop over here real quick. You're going to get the most out of it when you join as a student here today.
Hey there. So do we join as a guest or do we sign in welcome students?
Let's go join as a guest. So one more time for those that are just popping in, we are joining as a student in my lesson today. So that way you can interact with a few of these activities I have ahead of us. While you click on that link, I'm just going to go over some housekeeping here. First things first, make sure you are putting your questions in the chat if you're having any issues. Also, it says to please raise your hand. You don't have to do that today. It's a pretty small group. So obviously, again, just pop anything in the chat. I see it on my second screen here. This QR code will bring you to today's presentation, but I also did link it in the description of the session. But I also can just click this link, copy the link, and I'm going to put it in the chat. So this is all the resources for today, my survey link. I'm always trying to get better. My email, if you have any questions after today's session. Also here is the teacher file, and then all of the good that are going to get you going with Lumio. I'm going to drop that again in the chat at the very end, so don't worry if you feel like you might not have clicked on it in the beginning. I'll make sure that I pop it in at the end as well. You will receive credit for participating in these professional developments today. I have not become a staff member, so I'm not going to be super knowledgeable on this, but I'll allow you all to kind of read this statement here of how you get your CEU credit. All right. As I mentioned before, this is a very interactive session. Lumio is an engagement and interactive website where you can interact with your students and their devices. So it is nice to kind of come in here as a student today and kind of experience that. So if you haven't already, I would say you would get the most out of today if you join today's session as a student. Beautiful. And obviously, if you have any questions about how to get on, just pop it in the chat. Real quick, just want to quickly introduce myself to all of you. My name is Michelle Conway-Gray. I'm the PD specialist for Lumio and Smart Technologies. I am based in New Jersey, but I help educators all over the East Coast using our products. I was a former math teacher in 7th and 8th grade in Charleston, South Carolina. So not too far from some of the North Carolina folks here. And I was also an instructional technology coach in the school district of Philadelphia. So kind of been all over the place. But my email is open to any educator that I work with. So even if after today, if you have some questions, you're more than welcome to use that email at any time. And then also, I also like to post tips and tricks on my social accounts. I'm more active on Instagram, so I love connecting with my educators on Instagram and other social platforms. Again, I just had a new person join, so I'm just going to pop again in that chat the join link if you want to join my session. And then also one more time, I'm going to drop the resources for today. All righty. So, with that being said, let's dive in here. So, real quick icebreaker. I'm going to start this for the class. This is called Shout It Out, one of the several many tools that we have in Lumio. Shout It Out is a quick way of how I can get quick responses from my students. So, on your end, on your browser, you'll be able to type into that text box. So, I just want to know two questions. What do you teach? And then how do you support all of your learners in your classroom? I love this activity. It's just a way to get quick feedback, like I said, from your students, quick conversations with your students. Like I said, I taught math, so I probably would have them shout out quick math answers to me. What did you get for problem 9? Boom, boom, boom. So I really find Shout It Out such an easy tool, one, to create and also to have my students interact with it. So we have some speech therapy, occupational therapists here today. I also have a few second grade teachers. Love that. I also have K2 over here. I have some high school. I have 8th grade science, second grade, and then math. Beautiful. I can also make these responses bigger. I can click on them. And then at the very bottom corner here, I have some arrows that allow me to go through the responses. So how you engage your learners, we do a lot of work, board work, direct instruction, guided practice of skills, try to have various ways students can communicate and interact. Beautiful. Ears and eyes are open, ML support, aware of modifications because it's online. I integrate games as much as I can. Exactly. We'll look at some of the games today together. Multisensory lessons. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love these responses. I support all learners by creating a variety of assignments that meet different learning styles. Exactly. And today we'll look at a few examples and then be able to get into that teacher side and look at how to build some of these resources out. So amazing, because we have an hour and a half in this first session. So we have a little bit more time than we do some of the afternoon sessions. So we'll be able to dive into that teacher side as well. Very cool. All right, let's keep it moving here. So as I mentioned before, quick learning objectives here. We are just going to look at Lumio's tools, learn how we can provide more equitable learning experiences for our students. You'll experience it from the student perspective. That's what we're doing right now. I find it really helpful if teachers understand the student side, and then we'll look a little bit at that teacher perspective as well today. And then we'll wrap up with some resources. As I mentioned before, as we go through today's session, if there's any questions that you might have, just pop them in the chat and I will answer any of them. So I just want to get a quick feel of who's in the room and where are you on your Lumio journey. You could be someone who's never heard of Lumio before, and that's why you signed up. To maybe you dabbled a little bit over the last few years with it. Maybe you use the games for review. Maybe you use the manipulatives for manipulative work. So this is actually made in Canva. I love using Canva, and you can import your own resources into Lumio. So you don't always have to recreate the wheel. I was a big Google Slide user when I was in the classroom, and I always just found it a little hard for people to interact with. My Google Slides, I would have to make a copy for each student. If I had a drag and drop activity, I would have to like stack all the objects on top of each other. Lumio just makes it a lot easier for me in that sense. So I like the aesthetic pieces of other platforms like Canva and, like I said, Google Slides, but I'll import them into Lumio and use Lumio as the uh, tool that I use to deliver the actual lesson. In Lumio, there's different tools like infinitely cloned shape. So I added just these cars at the bottom and they're infinitely cloned. So my students can either one, just walk by my interactive display and move the car, or I can have them sign in on devices like you all are today. So in a second, you're going to be able to actually edit this page. So this is a self-assessment. We have so many of these actually in our Lumio library of resources. But like I said, I just made this real quick in Canva. So this could be, where are you on your fractions journey? Where are you on your sales journey? So you can kind of change the question based off what you're teaching. So in Lumio, in live mode, I have this little classroom management tab up here. So it's like my little people tab up at the top left corner. I see that I have 11 students in here. Here are all my students, okay? And then I can change the pacing of a lesson, which will class ID at the bottom. When I was teaching, I would get the question like, what's your class ID again? So this persistent code at the bottom is super helpful. Let me go back in there. But I can convert any page at any given moment to an interactive space for my students. So right now it's going to be view only, but then as soon as I convert the page, you'll be able to I can make it a group workspace if I wanted to, but then I can also make it a whole class whiteboard. Okay. If I turn this into a whole class whiteboard space, all of you are going to now be able to drag one of these cars to where you feel you are on your Lumio journey. And I'll give you a few seconds there to drag the car out. Amazing. So my goal is to push you a little bit more further down this road by the end of today. As you can imagine, with 30 something seventh graders, this could get quickly crazy, quickly fast. So what you could do is up at the top, you have this option that says everyone can edit. I can swipe this off and now it's back to view only. Maybe I need to reestablish expectations. Boys and girls, we are just pulling one car out and telling me where you are in your Lumio journey. I also can click on the contributions and see who put what and where. So I can see here that Nicole added this car. I can see who contributed to the page. Okay. And I'm not surprised that I have a couple novices down here. I know this was originally like a beginner session, so beautiful. This is, I'll make sure I go pretty slow today. That way I can point out some of my favorite tools and get you more familiar. By developing people, I just hope to get you a little bit further down towards proficient. All right. So that is your whole class whiteboard. For me, I really like this option. I was a big Jamboard user, and with Jamboard not really being a tool anymore, I was looking for whole class whiteboard alternatives. And I really like Lumio's whole class whiteboard space. So real quick, just a brief overview of what is Lumio. So Lumio is a cloud-based software where you can use it to create engaging lessons. You can use your already existing files. So you can use Google, you can use Microsoft, you can bring in your PDFs. Like I mentioned before, I'm a big Canva girl these days. So you can bring in your Canva resources into Lumio. We have a whole series of games that you can try out. We have ready-made resources like manipulatives and graphic organizers. We're integrated with different tools like PhET simulations. I know I saw some math folks in here. So I don't know if you're familiar with PhET, but PhET simulations are amazing for interactive math and science simulations. With Desmos, we have Desmos calculator, graphing calculator built right into Lumio, so you don't even have to go out to Desmos if you want to use Desmos. We're integrated with YouTube, so if you add a YouTube within Lumio, it's an ad-free experience for your students, which is really awesome. And then, as you could see here, we were able to quickly turn things into individual spaces, group workspaces, whole class whiteboard. With an hour and a half, we're not going to be able to see all of the tools, and especially with new users, I don't want to overwhelm you with all the tools. But as you dive deeper into Lumio, you'll see the value of maybe throwing a Desmos in the middle of your Google Slides or a game for review, things like that. So again, if you have any questions, pop it in the chat. Yeah, so let's keep it moving. And also you can share files with your students asynchronously. So maybe you don't want to drive the lesson like I am today. In a live lesson, you can share it with them asynchronously to complete on their own. I also can share with my colleagues as well. So we're just going to look at a few different examples here. What I really like, and I really just kept it pretty basic for my new users, we have all these manipulatives that you can use, fraction tiles, algebra tiles, making word tiles. So all different manipulatives that, a lot of us teachers have had manipulatives in our classroom for years, but it sometimes takes a lot of work. You got to print them out, you got to cut them out, you got to laminate them, you got to put them in the little baggies. Next thing you know, when you put it at the center, half of them go missing for the next group. So digitalizing it with Lumio sometimes can be really helpful for teachers. So I could have edit this ahead of time, maybe put some directions at the top, but I just want to quickly show you that you can add different letters here. You can use it to make the chunking and the different ending sounds, beginning sounds. So I'm actually going to put some instructions up here at the top. I'm going to say, create as many words as you can. All right, so I'm just going to add some instructions up here at the top. Maybe I lock it in place. I could have done that ahead of time in editing mode, but you know what? Just real quick, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to go back to this classroom management tab. And I am going to now make this just a quick individual space. So you guys can have your own manipulative now and make as many words as you possibly can with those letter tiles. And I'll let my Wi-Fi catch up today. I don't know, I'm having a little bit of Wi-Fi issues today. There we go. There we go. So I can see all my students that have hit start. There are their names right here. I can even click on someone's name. So I can hop into Emily and see how Emily's doing. There she goes. She's making funk, bunk. She can do nonsense words. I can actually see people working. I can hop in Sheba's. There she goes. Look at Sheba go. Maybe Beth, see what Beth's up to. And I can even go and give Beth some feedback. So I can hop over to my own tools here and I can give her an A+, great job. I can add a little sticker to hers, maybe give her some quick feedback. I love the way love the way you are using the letter tiles. Maybe make that a little smaller so it's not in her way. Beautiful. So I can actually give her real-time feedback as well. Obviously, when you're teaching, you don't always have the time to do this, but I just wanted to show that I could give Beth this feedback and only Beth is seeing this feedback. Okay. Let's see. You can also hit done. Maybe one of you can explore the done button for me. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to my volunteers. Oh, there you all go. So now you can see that there's little green check marks next to those that have hit done. So I can hop in Leah's here and I can see, wow, Leah crushed it. Look at her go. So I can see that Leah did a really nice job. I've worked with educators before who have used the done button. If like maybe you're doing a math problem or something and you say, hey, hit the done button if you're comfortable sharing your strategy of how you solve the problem. That was a different way I've seen an educator use the done button other than the obvious. So I thought that was a really cool way of using that done button. All right, so real quick, we have a huge library of all different manipulatives that you can choose from. So you could have the physical manipulative in front of your students, and maybe you just have the digital one up on your interactive display. And then they can just like follow along or maybe come up and do it what they have in front of them physically. You also can create your own. So for this one, I just used I just made this within Lumio. I brought in transparent images that I saved on my computer. And I just when I had I was working with a school that has primarily deaf students. So I wanted to recreate this um this letter manipulative you all just did, but I recreated it for sign language. So they could use their own letter tiles to create um, different words. So you can prep it ahead of time using that infinitely cloned feature, infinite cloner. And you'll see how we can do that when we're in the edit mode. But it's again, how can we meet the needs of all of our students? So there's different tools that you can use to do that. Any questions about maybe just the manipulatives? I don't see any in the chat, but again, just wanted to kind of show different examples today. And I will say, like, majority of the manipulatives, you can probably use K-12, but there's definitely more for elementary and middle. But there are some that I probably, if I was teaching secondary math, maybe those algebra tiles, things like that, that I would definitely pull into my lesson. And Martha, this file is linked on the resources. So if someone was like, hey, I love that, I want to repurpose that, um, it's it's linked on the resources here on the Wakelet. Great question, Leanna. I probably would have to really understand like what the large image is, and maybe I might have to like play around with that one. Yeah, so good question. So this actually came into one image. Oh, and I'm so glad you brought this up. This did take a little bit of work. This was something I found Google Images. So I ended up having to do a little work in the back end. I had to like screenshot and then I used like a transparent tool. And I don't know if anyone's familiar with Smart Notebook, but I used the transparent feature in Smart Notebook. And then I just like saved those images and brought them in. But now I have this forever. It took me a little work to like do it at first, but then now I just repurpose this like all the time. Sometimes I'll just like completely get rid of all these images here and just have them build with just the sign language. I think sometimes it's just fun to even teach kids some sign language as well. But Leanna, great question. That this was originally one whole image on Google, and I could not find the same hand. So I just had to do a little work with screenshotting and then using a transparent tool. Love that question. All righty. So some other tools that you can use. So for here you have just text. So a lot of teachers use text, poems, reading prompts, what have you. This one was A Bear in the Rain. But if you notice, if I click on this text box, do you notice that this is obviously I locked it, but if I unlocked it, this would be editable. Okay, it's editable text that I brought in. I'm going to lock it again. I literally just copied and pasted this into a text box. But what happens is because it's editable text, we have a tool called Immersive Reader. So when you might see this book icon in your toolbar right now. If you don't, maybe you see three dots. You might be able to just click on the three dots and then see the book. In a second, I could always just turn this into an individual handout so you can kind of explore it a little bit. But if I click on this book icon, do you notice how it highlighted the book or the text? Okay. If I click on the book, one thing about Lumio, it's the one tab wonder. Everything's going to happen within one tab here. If I hit play,
A Bear in the Rain. Once upon a time, a bear.
to read it to the students. So again, super helpful if I need it read to my kids. But also there's different settings that they can play around with. So they have this little voice settings over here. I can slow it down, speed it up. I can change the voice selection. You also can explore some of these tools over here as well. So you have different text preferences. So I can make it bigger. So maybe I have some visual impairment in my classroom and they need bigger text sizes. I can change the decrease or increase the spacing, change the font. Again, some visual impairment. Maybe I need a darker background. Again, just saving me so much time as a teacher that I might have had to use to like make copies of it with all different settings and stuff. Also, the middle tab is grammar options. So maybe you're working on syllables with your students. Maybe you're working on different parts of speech and you want them to find all the nouns. And then one of my favorites is this reading preferences one on the side. And remember, we're recording, so you will also have this recording to kind of go back to if you need to. This reading preferences, again, maybe some reading IEPs need some line focus. The picture dictionary is pretty cool. If they turn this on, they can click on a word and see the image of the word, and then they can hear the word. So maybe my speech therapist in here or one of my therapists are maybe geeking out right now. Also, you have the reading preferences. You have this option to translate the document. So if I choose a language, maybe I have a Spanish speaking student and they are from Mexico. So if I click on Spanish for Mexico and swipe on this document option, this text has now translated into
Un oso bajo la lluvia. Érase una vez, un oso caminaba por el.
They can switch between Spanish and back to the original, Spanish and back to the original. So this is all called immersive reader. So it's this book icon to the side. I don't know if anyone is actually exploring it right now, but again, let me just turn this into an individual handout so you can see what that looks like. Maybe you want to edit the text a little bit. So you'll notice as students, you have, maybe I have my students reading the text. You have different tools here to the side. So maybe I have them using the pen tool, maybe the highlighter tool over here. And maybe they're highlighting different words. Maybe I say, find all of the ing words. So maybe they're finding walking and raining. And maybe I have them go through and find all of the ing words. But again, just a really fun one. I could have just printed this out, but I taught secondary. So sometimes I hate it going to the copier and printing out like 100 something copies because every period I had to make copies for, right? Same thing with my elementary. You guys print so much throughout the day, whether it's worksheets or things that you might be doing. And then if you have different types of students in your classroom, you have to make different types of copies for that. But here you might just have some, it just might help you out throughout the workday. Hey, Abigail. Any questions with immersive reader? Maybe you are having an aha moment of how you could use it in your classroom. All righty. So what I sometimes do is I'll take a reading passage like A Bear in the Rain, and I will partner it with another activity. So maybe I have them reading the activity, and then I want them to do another activity called rank order, which is one of our game-based learning activities. So maybe they are reading the passage, and then I want them to interact with the game. So this one is called rank order. So it's a sequencing game. So this one is actually them sequencing the plot of the story. So something that is something that you would pretty much do anyway in a reading passage. So this one, they're just going from the beginning to end of the story. I could have them, I can see there's 3 games that actually give me a data dashboard as a teacher. So I can say view progress, and rank order is one of them. So I can see it right here. You have all of my students that start and they're in progress. Obviously, I didn't make you read the story, so you might not know exactly what the process is here. But again, I can come over here and say model activity. Maybe you're a K-2 teacher and you just don't want them to sign in to the activity. Sometimes it's hard to have them little ones sign in because one, they might not even know their numbers yet. So they don't know how to even put a class code in. So maybe I'm just up here on the interactive display doing this with them. And maybe we're putting the plot together, but I can also have them do the activity on their own as well. I can say show results and I can see how everyone does. Also, you'll notice here in the game, I can add instructional audio. So you can add up to 5 minutes of audio per page. So I did add some audio for my students. And maybe my audio doesn't want to work. I'm going to refresh my page here just real quick. As I mentioned before, just having a little bit of a Wi-Fi day. I'm sure all of us have experienced that before in life. But I'm going to hop over again. Let me see. For some reason that's not loading up, but it's okay. I'm going to go to open dashboard. I can actually go from class overview to also student progress as well. And there it goes, as people complete, my data is going to change. I can see the class average, the time on task. I can also see the 5 most frequently incorrect answers and the 5 frequently most incorrect or correct answers, which would be super helpful if I'm doing some sort of center. I can like pull out the answers that they're getting right and then add new questions in there. I can also see student progress here, so I can hop into Leah's and I can see how she did. So maybe I am using this data for something, but remember, this is always based off someone's first attempt. So they can play as many times as they want, but I'm only getting data off the student's first attempt. So sometimes I'll work with teachers that will put it at the start of their lesson and maybe they just duplicate it so it's at the bottom of their lesson or at the end of the lesson and just see the student growth between the 2 games. Another strategy that I've seen teachers use. I love this time on activity right here because we have those students that are just so excited to play the game, so they'll rush through it. And they'll only it will take them like 10 seconds and maybe they get 2 out of 9. So I can say they just rush through it. Maybe they just need to take their time a little bit. We go back to class overview. Same thing, I will see how everyone's doing as they're completing the game. The games are really fun. There's so many different games that you can, there's 12 different games. There's a matching game, a sorting game. There's like team type style games like Monster Quiz. So definitely highly recommend exploring them. We typically say new users start with the games. They're so easy to make. And when we get into that build part on the teacher side, you'll see how easy it can be. All righty. This is another quick little game that you can see here. I think my audio up here, maybe when you guys are hitting it, it's working, but I think I'm having some sort of Wi-Fi issue, and that's why the audio is not loading up. But I can always show you in the build what that looks like. This one is just like a choice board essentially. So I used one of the games called Label Reveal, and I just wanted them to complete 3 tasks. I just added this image that I screenshotted. I made this in Google Slides, I think, back in the day. And then I just added that image and then used the label reveal as a choice board. So maybe I have different activities set up for them after this choice board. Maybe in different slides here behind the choice board. Maybe I have them all set up in different games or in different activities. And then what I can do here is I can hop over. So say a student comes in here and they're saying, okay, I'm going to do help, please. I'm going to do need practice, but then I'm also going to do the getting there activity. What I can do here is go into my classroom management tab and say student pacing. So if I click on student pacing, notice that now you have arrows at the bottom of your screen that you can actually go through the slides on your own. So again, you can have different activities set up for different learners in your classroom and have them choose which activities they want to complete. So again, just meeting the needs of all of those learners. And you can just have them set up ahead of time. I can also go back to my classroom management tab and say lesson pacing and bring you right back to where I need you on the slides. And then I just have a couple more examples here. So again, I was a big PDF worksheet girl, so I brought in I use worksheets all the time, just like every teacher does. But again, I hated always printing them out. So again, this was just a quick worksheet. Maybe I have them using reading strategies as they're reading. So I actually used I brought this PDF in from ReadWork. I did bring it in as editable so that this immersive reader work, but you can absolutely just bring in a static image as well. Remember, when you bring things in as editable in any platform, you'll notice that it gets a little wonky. So you have to like fix the text a little bit. If you're familiar with like editable things, then you kind of know that sometimes you have to do some work when you bring it in. But I could have just brought this completely in as a normal worksheet as well. And then I just used, I used images like a check mark, a question mark, and I just used that infinitely clone feature. And then I just honestly took this highlighter pen and just went like this. Ooh, maybe make it look a little nicer like I did here, but it's okay. And then I just used the infinitely clone feature, and there we go. My students can use it as a highlighter. I just wanted to save them a little time. I used to do active reading strategies, and I had to walk around and give each kid a highlighter, and then again the highlighters ended up on the floor. So again, maybe this is just a quicker way that I want them to use this worksheet. So as they're reading, they can look for new vocab words like ideals and maybe symphony. Maybe they've never heard of those words before, sublime. Okay. So again, I could have made this an individual handout so you can interact with that. But due to time, I just wanted to have enough time. So we're in the build part 2. And then maybe I partner it with a different activity. So again, they're working on new vocab words. So this is actually just a graphic organizer. Again, we have ready-made resources like graphic organizers, manipulatives. All I had to do for this sprayer model was add the words, what I wanted the words to be here. Okay, took me 2 seconds. This sprayer model already came with gray text, gray text, gray text. I just changed the words to make sense. And then these are all locked in place. Oh, they were locked in place at one point. Make sure I like lock that down because your students will work. Oh, there we go. Students will move them in place if you don't lock them down. But then now I can use this. I have my students choose which new vocab word they want to use in the Frayer model. So again, I can shoot this out to devices. So again, I'm going to shoot this out to you guys individually. And maybe I have you create, finish this Frayer model for me. So again, just meeting the needs of your students. Some people are more visual learners, some people are more auditory. Different types of strategies that you might want to use this for. The manipulatives, like you saw, different manipulatives depending on the types of students that you have in your classroom. You'll notice that you will probably have to do some sort of low stakes activity at first. Sometimes I'll just do like a getting to know you activity in the beginning, just so that students can get familiar with the tools. So you have a pen tool here, you have an eraser, this image tool here, this heart plus sign picture one. I can add different stickers. I can add different shapes here, lines. This image here, I can actually do quick searches. So I can search for Martin Luther King. And the students can actually bring in images. You can add links if you wanted them to link out to something. The text tool is probably the most difficult one to kind of understand. So if I click on the A tool here, A, see the A, and then click in the space, that's what's going to create my text box. So the definition of ideal is blah, 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 blah. For my math teachers and my science teachers, we do have an equation editor. So you can make different math types and chem types. And then finally, there's that immersive reader tool as well. So I can always pop back out and see, let's see how Sheba's doing. Look at her, she picked ideal. Emily, is the ideal lunch, perfect. Love that. So I can see Emily working. Again, I can see people working in real time. So with that being said, I think this is a good spot to just pause and reflect about that student side. Obviously, there's so much more that we could have dove into. But again, like I mentioned before, I do want to have some time on the teacher end and how do I create some of these activities. But real quick, just a quick reflection here. Going through the slides, is there anything that stood out to you as like one new idea that you would like to try in your classroom, or maybe even try recreating on the teacher side? Pop it in the chat. Maybe you're just completely new to Lumio and you're like, I've been looking for a strategy for a whole class whiteboard for a long time, and now I found one. Sometimes when I'm working with math teachers, sometimes knowing that you can import PDFs or worksheets like that is super helpful. The immersive reader tool for some teachers is a huge win. But I will say, if you're new to Lumio, just try out like a quick shout it out while you're teaching. Maybe it's a quick game to review something. Let's see what people are saying. I like to check in the whiteboard, exactly. Building the words, having an immersive reader available is awesome. Yep. I'm new to Lumio. I love it. Like to shout it out. I like the way I can see who wrote what. The immersive reader, creating the annotation icons for students to use in an article. So my second grades are, yeah, right. Emily, like they'll take that highlighter and they'll highlight the crap out of that PDF. So sometimes if you just kind of limit them, they're still going to see that little like highlighter tool to the side. So you may run into students that are still doing that, but you can maybe eliminate it a little bit more. Megan likes the immersive reader tool. I work in a multilingual school, so I love the idea of being able to, yeah, Katie, I'm sure, you know, if you're doing something, you have to like do different languages. So if you have English, Portuguese, Russian students, you used to have to like translate and then print all of them. Sometimes that's super helpful for teachers. It helps to engage the students individually, right? So I can make it individual, I can make it a group thing, a whole class thing. So I'm hitting people in different needs throughout the lesson. Just throughout this lesson today, we did a whole class whiteboard together. We did some individual stuff together, and most of you are going to be in class. So I would probably talk a lot more about the activities. Maybe we'd talk a little bit deeper about A Bear in the Rain, go over it together, right? But just because we're doing a quick little walkthrough here, we're not diving into the true instructional side of it. Amazing. Love the feedback. So now we're going to switch over to teacher. So this is going to be, Abigail, I love that. It encourages students' participation in learning, right? Like, these things are nothing new, like annotating a text and using manipulative, but sometimes when they just see it through a different lens, they get more excited to try it out. Also, like, I don't have to show their work either. So maybe sometimes they just need to do it quietly by themselves. Like I said, we can do it asynchronously and then I can check their work later. Sometimes they just see this plot one. This is nothing new. People sequence plots all the time, but because it's very game based or gamey, they'll interact with it just because it's a game, you know? But beautiful. Love that feedback. So we are going to switch gears. So what you need to do on your student side to get out kind of system out of student side, you're going to need to go to the 3 lines at the top of your page and you're going to say leave class. Okay. I always find just closing the browser altogether and just opening up a whole new browser is going to be the best bet. But say completely leave the class, completely leave the tab, like completely close out of it, and just open up like a blank tab, like a Google page. Okay. I'm going to get out of here too. And I'll kick everyone out so they just get themselves out here. Completely get out of the tab. Pretend you open up a Google tab here. Depending on how Bacumbi has it set up, I'm not completely positive. Sometimes you can go into your waffle, and if you slide down the waffle, you may see Lumio at the very bottom. Okay, if that's not the option, you can always just go to golumio.com. Golumio.com. I put it in the chat. Golumio.com. I have to sign out of mine real fast here just so I can be in the exact same page as you all. But if I go to golumio.com, it should bring me to this page here. What you're going to do is you're going to say sign in, sign in, sign in, and then say sign in as a teacher, sign in as a teacher. You are going to use whatever domain that you have. So it could be a Google domain. I do believe it's probably Google. And then you just say sign in with Google and then just put in your school credentials. Most teachers of the district should be provisioned into Lumio, so they should be able to just get right into their accounts. If you are like occupational therapy or something like that, it might just pop you into what is called a free account. We could just like cross that bridge of like what's going on after this BD, but and then you just need to follow up with your admin team or your tech team. But as long as you can get into Lumio just so you can at least see it, will be helpful in this build part. You are successful when you get to your Lumio homepage, which is going to look like mine, very similar to mine, but it's obviously not my account, it's your account. So you might not have as many lessons as me, but you should be able to get into Lumio. And while you do that, I just want to find a resource real fast here, just so you could see that instructional audio while you all try and get signed in. Yes, I don't have the instructional audio on this one. Oh well, we'll just explore it when we get to the editing side. So let me know if you're having any issues. You can just put in the chat like what you're seeing, but you should be successful when you get to your homepage. You see your name up here. I would like to see you in the chat put your class ID just so I know you are on your homepage. So mine's always going to be 246157. While you do that, let me grab I have a golden retriever that always likes to join my sessions and he's banging at the door. Hold on one second. All right, Leanna's in, Martha's in, Beth's in. All right, perfect. We're getting in there. While we wait for a few others to get in here, I just want you to keep in mind your name here, Michelle Conway. I work with teachers, so I don't mind that you guys know my first name, but this is student facing when they log into your session. So you can just go over here to edit class in the far right of the banner, right next to where you see your class ID, and you can rename your class, okay? So if you don't want it to say Michelle Conway, you're like first and last name, you can rename yourself to what you want it to be. So Mrs. Gray. And now that's the name of my class. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to keep it the way it was for my second one. Great job. Everyone's getting in a little bit. Beautiful. All right, so we have about 13 people minus me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. Yeah, no worries, Martha. In the banner, you have on the far right side, edit class right here. And then if you say rename yourself, okay, that's how you can rename your class. It's just one overarching class. Like you don't have like class flows, like you don't have like period 1, period 2. It's just one overarching class. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. Let's all take a look at those settings real quick here where it says edit class. You have rename yourself. Let's look at the second option down that says manage your class. If we click on that one right here, second one, I find sometimes dropping this link somewhere. It's super easy in terms of getting my kids signed into my lesson. So sometimes like having the little ones type hellosmart.com and then putting 246157 is a little difficult. So you notice that I did this in the beginning of the session. It's like join my session and just clicking the link is so much easier. So sometimes people like to share that either on their Google Classrooms or Canvas courses, whatever you may use for your LMS. If you have iPads in your classroom, sometimes just having this QR code printed out and up near somewhere in your classroom, and they can just take the iPad and scan in. It's super easy. The middle option here where it says guest, if you click on that, teachers, 99% of you are going to prefer that you So this requires students to come in with credentials. That way you know who's contributing to the page. You know who student is with what. It allows them to come back in later and finish any work that they haven't finished. If you don't have that option swiped off, they won't be able to do those things. When you have guest access turned on, they can name themselves. So it's sometimes like they'll say like I love dogs 24 and I don't know who that student is. I work with teachers, so I do need this guest access turned on so I can like trick the system to bring you in as a student. So if you do work with teachers, like if you're an instructional coach or something like that, you will want to keep that turned on. But teachers, I recommend turning off. And then anyone else, turn it on. And then last thing in this little edit class that I want a new user to take a look at is this bottom option that says immersive reader. Sometimes this is defaulted as off. If you want that book icon option ready for your students, you will want to make sure that is swiped on, okay? This typically sticks, like I don't have to change this setting all the time. But if you ever notice that the book icon isn't in the toolbar, you just need to hop out of the lesson and then go to edit class, immersive reader, and just make sure that's swiped on so you see green. All right. I think we've done a little bit of the housekeeping part. We can dive in more into editing now. Let's talk a little bit about your interface. So you have your files up here. I can hit start or edit. So these are all my recent files. Start or edit, start or edit, start or edit. Starting it would start the lesson with my students. Edit would be if I wanted to go back in and edit anything. So I would probably want to hop back into this lesson and figure out what's going on with that instructional audio, right? And then each one of your lessons, so you can also put them in folders. I am slowly becoming more organized, but there is a lot of files here that are not in folders at all. But trying. There's a folder icon up here if you ever want to build folders out. But each tile here of a lesson, each tile has these little 3 dots in right next to the name. So you see these 3 dots, 3 dots. If I click on those 3 dots, I get a couple different options. Move to would be to move it into a folder. At this current time, I can't just drag and drop them into folders. I cannot wait for that update to happen. But in this 3 dots here, I have the option to rename. Okay. And then you also have the option to duplicate a lesson. So I'm sure there's some folks out here who might reteach the same lesson multiple times in one day. So you'll see here, I have my Bacumbi, and then do you see that little MC here? That means master copy. I don't touch it. It's my clean copy. There's no student work in it. So I will duplicate off of this master copy. And there, that's where you see S1 meaning session 1, S2 meaning session 2. So this could be like P1, period 1, P2, period 2. So I always have this clean copy, and then I'll just duplicate off of it. So because the students have already, my 2 o'clock session, you guys have already all been in this file. You've already done the whole class whiteboards. I've done the game with you guys. I don't want to use that file. I want to use a fresh new copy for my next class. Okay. So that's that duplicate option within it. Then you have this other option called share link. So if I want to share this file out, so if I click on share link, Abigail and I were colleagues and we're like, hey, I just made this like social studies file for you. My kids loved it. If you want it, here's a copy of it. I can take this teacher link, copy it, and then send it over to Abigail. And now Abigail can click on that, save it to her library, and now she has her own clean copy of it. It's kind of like make a copy in Google, right? And then I also have this bottom link here, which is my student link. So if I want them to work at their own pace, maybe in a center or maybe for homework, I will want to take this share link and maybe post it as an assignment on my course that I use, like Google Classroom or Canvas or Schoology, one of those things. Okay. So those are my two different links that I can share out when it comes to a lesson. And I think that's a good spot to stop in terms of housekeeping. Obviously, you can dive a little deeper into other settings here, but I think as a teacher, I feel like that's a good spot to start. Okay. We will talk a little bit about together. So under your name, you're going to see new or import, but we're going to dive into this tab up here called Lumio Library. So if you click on Lumio Library, right up here at the center in Lumio Library, this is where you can get ready-made resources. So you don't always have to recreate the wheel all the time, if you will. So here are some manipulatives you can take a look at. These are just like the first 6, but then if you click on see more, there's a lot more manipulatives you can kind of explore on your own. So this is where I actually got the, where is it? There's a making words one there, but there is another making words. Here it is. I got the one I used in our session today. If I click on lowercase here, I was like, you know what? I love these little ending sounds, but there's so many versions of it. So I was like, okay, I'm essentially previewing. This is the one I ultimately ended up using. But if I want to use this in a lesson, I just need to say save to my library right here. Save to my library. And I'm just going to save that. Okay. And it's going to say processing down here. And then I can go back and keep looking at different things. So you'll notice that we have all different categories that you can take a look at. We also do integrations with other companies. So you'll see Jump Math, Epic, ReadWorks here. So we do have different categories. Some life skills with Persona, ClickView, all different things with that company. We have some brain break sections. If you're like, hey, I don't even know where to start, we have these instructional toolkits. So I really like this Lumio instructional strategies one. So if you're ever looking for different ways of using Lumio, you can save this toolkit and then just kind of explore it. Same thing if you're trying to figure out how to do some UDL work. There's a whole toolkit for UDL, Universal Design for Learning. You have Avid toolkit, English Language Learners toolkit. So we have different toolkits. We also, if you're like, hey, how do you use it with Canva? Or how do you use it with Seesaw? We have instructional toolkits for those things as well. But we have featured, so this is going to be a lot of like back to school type stuff. Manage your classroom. I know I have some elementary folks in here. There's some really good stuff for like morning meetings in here. Maybe some attendance ideas if you want to take attendance with Lumio. Drag their name as they walk in your classroom. You can also search for things. I kind of shy away from these filters. Hear me out. We're a global company, so someone might tag it a little differently. I don't think there's any harm in the subject ones, but sometimes the grade bands, I don't break it down to like, I know I have some second grade teachers. I won't say like grade 2 only. I'll open it to first and third. People tag it differently. But I'll just do a quick search like back to school. And I'll see all these different resources I can take a look at. These are typically combination of our content team, teachers at one point can submit activities. And then also, if you were a Smart Notebook user, you might have been familiar with something called Smart Exchange at one point. This is like a rebranded Smart Exchange, so you might find some old files in here from those times. But yeah, that's your Lumio library. So there it is, ready to go. There's my manipulatives. It's all completed and saved. I can keep going through and finding stuff. Highly recommend if you have some time doing that. But if I hop back over to my library here, so I have Lumio library and my library, there is that manipulative I just saved under recent. I don't typically touch these because I might want to repurpose something else in this slide deck. So I don't do anything with this, but I might change it up when I go under my name here where it says new. So if I want to start a whole new lesson, start fresh, I can hit new. So let's all hit new if you're following along. Maybe you're just watching me for this little walkthrough here. This window is always going to pop up like, where do you want to start? What's going on? What are we doing here? So I can import a resource. So maybe I import that manipulative I just saved from my library. I can import from Google Drive. Maybe I have something saved to my computer that I want to bring in, like a PDF or a PowerPoint. I can do those things. And then also you have the option to import editable files as well. So if I want to bring in that editable PDF like that Martin Luther King one, I do have those options, maybe an editable Google slide, all of those things. So I'm going to start with that. Before I do the import, you have YouTube, you have Desmos, you have all the things that you can start with. Here are some manipulatives that you can start with. Some graphic organizers like that Fryer model. There's all different graphic organizers you can start with. So you have a lot of places where you can start. And sometimes as a new user, I will say like, oh, this feels a little overwhelming, but there is these little graduation caps where there's like anywhere pretty much you navigate to. Amazing. Abigail, love it. But when you click on these little graduation caps, they give you a quick little blurb of what it is and how it works. They might even give you like an idea of how to use it. So like if I'm like, hey, I love game-based learning, but I don't know what all these games do. Look, there's these little graduation caps, okay? Amazing. So you know what? I'm going to start with the import. So I'm going to go to import a resource and I'm going to import those manipulatives. So I'm going to grab my library. And there it is right at the top, right up the top. I don't need all 4 of the manipulatives that this thing came with. So I'm just going to unselect. This is not showing up because I think I'm having a little bit of a Wi-Fi problem, which is fine. It's fine. I'm still here, which I'm happy about. So I'm just going to uncheck. I do, just because I've used this before, know it's the 3rd one. So I'm going to just uncheck and I'm just going to bring in this manipulative right here. I'm going to hit add. And it's starting that new file for me. Just need to let it load. Patience is key, especially when you're having an off Wi-Fi day. I am just going to refresh my page here. I think I'm just doing some refreshing. So right under here, you have new. Let's try this again. I'm going to import from my library. Bring in this one. Ideally, it's not supposed to take this much time, so I'm just gonna hit new one more time. Manipulatives, and I'm just gonna grab this one here. That other one just doesn't want to load up. I'll hit add. Feels a little bit more promising. There we go. All right, beautiful. So say this is the manipulative that I want to use with my students. So I have different options here. So what I like about walking teachers through that student side first, because this toolbar is very similar. So this is your pen tool, my selection tool. Here's my text tool, my shape tool, all the same shape. So you're very familiar with that from that walkthrough. But I want to change this to say, I'm going to unlock it and edit it. So I want to change this to be use the 10 frame to solve for 10. Probably have to like word that better, but drag it out so it fits here. Lock it in place. Two other tools that you have here at the top, you have this magic wand. This is where the magic happens. You can turn things ahead of time into editable spaces, so individual, group, or whole class. I like to, when I'm doing it live, explain it to the students a little bit and then convert it for them, like you saw I did in the walkthrough. But you can make things ahead of time, individual spaces. I also have this little talking head. So this is the instructional audio. I was trying to demo, but it wasn't working. But if I hit that talking head, I get 5 minutes of audio per page. Boys and girls, use the 10 frame to solve for 10. Use both the blue circle and green circle and make different math problems. Boys and girls, use the 10 frame to, and then hit that. And there's a little talking head ready to go. Okay. I can keep adding to this lesson if I wanted to. Maybe I just need to use Lumio for the manipulative, but say I add, go to the plus sign at the bottom left corner, and maybe I want to add one of those games. Okay, works for me. Let's go to the game. Remember, there's all different graduation caps, so if you don't know what all the games mean, I used rank order for that one, but maybe I use super sort. Maybe we are sorting. And it's always going to be 2 categories. So you got to make sure that you're thinking through only 2 categories. So maybe it's even and odd. And the odd numbers are 2, 4. I'm sorry, even numbers 6, 8, 10. Odds are 3, 5, 7, 9. I've done this with so many different categories for K-12. Irrational, rational numbers. You can see here I can add images or text. So maybe I go over to my image search and I look for the number 11. Beautiful. That's how I did the screenshots in the plot one. I just saved screenshots and brought them in. Because I can say select an image from my computer and there's that bare screenshots of the plot. That just takes a little bit more work. And then if I hit next, I get all these fun different themes. Some are a little bit more interactive than others. Some are just basic. So if you're like, hey, the garden one's a little too childish for my seniors, you do have some just simple themes. But the pirates one is a fun one. So if I hit pirate and hit finish, if I go to preview here, see how easy the games are. I always tell new users this is the easiest place to start. There's little pirate music. This is a little fun little game. Yeah, and you can do this again. Like this could be a center at the interactive display in the front of the classroom, or maybe it is them using their devices to play the game. What else did we do? We did the PDF. So maybe I bring in that PDF. So I go import a resource, my computer, PDF worksheet. I don't remember exactly which one it is, but let's see. Try this one. Sometimes the creator of something will lock it, so you can't bring it in. So a lot of teachers pay teachers things. Sometimes with ReadWorks. Beautiful. This one is going to hopefully work. I'm going to click on this page, and this is the second page of it. And I'll hit add. I don't need all these other pages. I just need the 2 pages here. There they are. It is not editable. I just I didn't have the time to like play around with all the text that might come in as editable, but you do have that option. In the example, I had those active reading strategies. So if I want to say, okay, I'm going to have questions, you have, so it was like questions, put this to the side. I'm going to work smarter, not harder. I'm going to say Control C, Control V, and I'm just going to say this was interesting. Ooh, drag it out so it all fits on one line. And then I think the other active reading strategy was new vocab. New vocab. One line, drag it out, it's all one line here. Beautiful. So what I can do here is now add those. I'm going to lock these in place so the kids don't move them on me. To select all things at the same time, I usually just click on one, hit shift, and just get them all together. And I'm going to lock it, and it locks them all down at the same time. Okay. I am going to go to my image tool here. And when I first made that PDF with the active reading strategies, these stickers were not released yet. So I think I'm going to use these stickers. The question mark, totally using that. Just make it a little smaller. Interesting. What do I want to use for interesting? I feel like the fire. They find it interesting. Fire. Ooh. I think the kids like to say that's fire, maybe. And then I said new vocab words. I use that highlighter. So I'm going to go to my pen tool here. The flat top is the highlighter. You can honestly use any color. I think I did the purple. Let's just switch it up. I'll use green this time. And I just like kind of just took time here on my mouse to make it like kind of clean looking. Beautiful. And then I'm just going to move that up. And remember, it was infinitely cloned, so they could just infinitely clone it. So I'm going to hit shift again, and I'm going to shift, shift, shift. And I don't need to hit both of the arrows, just one of them. And I'm going to use this infinitely cloner tool. And now that's ready to go for them to find new words. If you trust your students, you might not even have to do that last one with the highlighter, but I think it's sometimes nice to have I would have to repeat that process, so maybe I don't lock them all down at first, and then do it right here. So maybe I just unlock it. Let me unlock these. And then maybe I infinitely, hold on 1 second. If I do shift, 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 and say Control C, I can go to page 2 and just say Control V and have it all ready to go down here. Shift, 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 lock, shift, 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 infinitely clone, shift, 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 lock, shift, 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 infinitely clone. Now it's ready to go. Okay. It's going to be individual, so individual handout. This is page 2, MLK page 2. Individual handout, MLK page 1. Let's stop there so we can wrap up with some resources and some questions. So hopefully, like with this recording, you can go back and catch anything that maybe you just need to see one more time. But that lastly, you can always do like those graphic organizers. So maybe I bring in that prior model for the new vocab for that MLK document. But biggest thing is to make sure you give yourself a title. So I'm going to call this PCS STEAM session 1, and then hit finish editing. And there it is, ready to go. I can hit start. I can share it out to my students, maybe with all of you. But let's dive back into the file here and do some wrap up. So you don't have to sign back in. I'm just going to wrap up with all of us here. If you did have some time to create, or maybe you got some inspiration, what are some things that you want to create for your own classroom? Pop it in the chat. Just some resources moving forward. So I'm going to pop this Wakelet in the chat for everyone here. So I'm going to copy this again. This is all the resources for today. Thanks, Abigail. Yeah, so there's some really fun virtual attendance sheets that you might find in there. Love that idea. Just a real quick overview of the resources. So again, there is my email if you need it. A survey link. I'm always trying to find out how to get better. There is the teacher file. So if you ever want to repurpose any of the things, you can just take that file and save it to your library. So some of your resources moving forward. So we have a whole instructional toolkit that you can click on and use that and learn a little bit more about Lumio. This Lumio Academy. So you just need to sign into the Academy, and it's free. And they're free educator courses, and they teach you how to use Lumio at your own pace. So a getting started course, a level 1 course, and then we also have communities. So our Facebook group is always a great place to start. It's called Lumio Educators. And again, that's all linked here as well. And then we also have an ambassador platform. So if you want to join our community and find out some opportunities of how to get more involved with Lumio, do webinars with us, or even sometimes we meet with the developers with our ambassadors, and they kind of give feedback to our developers. They also, you find out before anyone else when things are coming out. So a pretty cool place to be. And then we do some exclusive events, like community events with the ambassadors. So I would love for some of you to do that application. It's very simple. You just kind of put some information here on the app. And then the biggest thing is that you just need to submit of how you're using Lumio. So you just use that teacher share link that I showed you to find in the 3 dots. You put that here. And then you can either put my name of how you found out about the ambassador platform or just put Becombi. Either one doesn't matter. And then we have a YouTube channel, whatever you may need, all that's linked on that Wakelet. And I also linked the Wakelet in the session description as well. These are all the sponsors for this conference. There is going to be an attendance form emailed out, so keep an eye out for that. Also, they have their own feedback form, so if you don't want to do my one, the one I provided, there's actually like an official conference one as well. But you just have to make sure that you fill out that form today, okay? Just make sure you're reading this, you're getting all the information here. I am not doing anything on the ECS side. I will, so all participants, like I said, you will receive an email at the end of the closing session. So at the end of today, you have to make sure that you fill out that form within 24 hours to receive a certificate for all of the sessions that you did or all the hours that you did today. And again, I think there's like a feedback form as well in there that the Becombi team created. I also made my own one if you ever want to do that one. I will hang out for any questions, but I do want to thank everyone for joining and learning with me today. I love Lumio, and I think my passion maybe comes through, but I think if I ever had to go back in the classroom, I would probably use Lumio all the time. But thank you all for joining. I do see, Beth, you popped in a question, is Lumio free for all? I know our school system has it. So if you are obviously your school district pays for it, you obviously can go in there for free. And students don't need accounts, so we don't have to worry about student accounts. They just kind of sign in with your class ID. But other users outside of the school system would have to pay for outside the free. And you can literally use Lumio, the free side. You just get that storage limit. I think it's like 10 lessons. But yeah, outside of that, I don't know what the cost is per year, but it's pretty reasonable. I think it's like $50 a year if you don't have the school plan. But yeah, thanks everyone. I will hang out the last 3 minutes if anyone has any questions. But again, thank you all for joining. And I have to do this again in 45 minutes. Who knows how I can get that done, but I will.